Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. In today's episode, we're going to have a brief update here on what is going on with inflation. I'm going to be showing you various graphs, just like the one you see on your screens, amongst a few other things. But before we jump into that, as always, if you want to support us here at the Bald Brad Show, or heck, support a conservative, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Share this link with your friends and family all over social media. With that being said, this comes from the New York Times, and they title it, Prices Rise Rapidly in May, Live Updates. So this is the most current update that you can get. It just went live 13 minutes ago. With that being said, they start off here with a time series graph that starts at 0% all the way to 14%. And this is something I like to see because it's a trustworthy graph. And this comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics as well. So there's not really much manipulation in terms of how this graph is presented, which is perfect. You usually want to see these types of graphs start at 0. Now, in that 1975 category there, that's when you had Gerald Ford in office. And then obviously right there around the early 80s is when you had Jimmy Carter, which is why you see inflation upwards of 14%. And you go all the way to the right, and that's where we're currently at, sitting roughly around 8.6%, which is extremely high. If you look at that, 6% excluding food and energy. Folks, these are numbers that clearly we have not seen in an extremely long time. And who's Joe Biden going to blame this all on? Yes, Vladimir Putin. Even though we saw inflation increasing because the Biden administration pumped the economy full of these COVID-19 stimulus checks, which anybody would expect to inflate the economy. Now, the numbers don't lie, and it's not looking good. To give you a perspective, usually the consumer price index and how they calculate these things, the average of what we expect to see from year to year is about 1 to 3%. So when you're at 8.6 on average, and it varies from different states, just like California has their prices for gasoline above what the national average is. It's terrible in some places, folks. It's terrible. I'm going to read just a little bit of this, and then we'll jump into a new bar graph. It says prices climbed 8.6% in the year through May, a reacceleration of inflation that makes it increasingly difficult for consumers to afford everyday purchases and poses a major challenge for the Federal Reserve and White House as they try to secure a strong and stable economy. Basically, what that's talking about is the Federal Reserve is trying to determine what interest rates should be and not to pour over the threshold to cause us to go into a recession, but also not being under that threshold that would cause us to go into a recession as well. So increasing interest rates through the Federal Reserve, which is what the banks and other institutions look at to determine what their interest rate should be as well, is basically a balancing beam, and it's a balancing act. And a lot of people tend to think that the route the Federal Reserve is going to go, and historically that it could lead us into, or at least lead us into, a recession. The consumer price index climbed 1% from April, far more quickly than in previous months, and by 0.6% after stripping out food and fuel prices, which can be volatile. That so-called core inflation reading matched April's readings. Federal officials are watching for signs that inflation is cooling on a monthly basis as they try to guide prices or price increases back down to their goal. But Friday's report offered more reason for worry than comfort. The headline inflation rate was the fastest since 1981, as a broad array of products and services, including rents, gas, used cars, and food, became sharply more expensive. Policymakers aim for 2%, and that's why I said it's usually between 1 and 3% inflation over time using different but related indexes, which is also sharply elevated. Central bankers are raising interest rates to make borrowing more expensive, hoping to cool off consumer and business demand and give supply a chance to catch up, settling the stage for more moderate inflation. Basically, right, while increasing interest rates, it's going to cause the consumer to sit back and not go and actually purchase certain goods and services. And because they're not purchasing those goods and services, it gives manufacturing and production more time to ramp up and offset that demand. So that's the end goal of what they're trying to do. But the problem is that when you have Joe Biden in terms of energy and fuel costs, not increasing supply and trying to find supply somewhere else, that poses a problem for the energy sector. And that's what we're seeing right now, because Joe Biden has come out and said, look, I'm not going to increase domestic production. We're going to go other avenues and import that oil from other countries, which I get that he's trying to appeal to his base. But a lot of Americans, including his base, are just getting pissed off with him because they want those gas prices to go down, because they're spending hundreds of dollars more each month just on fuel, let alone that doesn't even include the price of food, which is what I want to get to right now, because this graph is astonishing. The inflation report underscores a challenge for Biden. And this is a challenge that Biden doesn't classify as a crisis, very similar how he's not classifying the immigration aspect or challenge, according to Jen Psaki, Karine Jean-Pierre, and Joe Biden himself, meaning his entire administration, the White House. They just call it a challenge rather than a crisis. So this is really a crisis for Biden because his poll numbers are tanking because of all this. Look at the fuel oil percentage, 16.9%. That's the biggest one on the graph. Okay. And he doesn't want to solve the issue, and he can. He can make this a lot easier without having these oil companies go through certain loopholes. They can increase production, but when you have the federal government ramping down regulations on them and not allowing more drilling or not allowing the domestic production of oil to occur, as well as building the pipelines, that poses a massive problem, and that's what we're seeing right here and right now. Airline fares are increased, pipe utility gas services have increased, gasoline, all types, 4.1% increase. Again, some of these numbers are inflated higher than this in other states. Like the state of California, we're going to hit $8 or have already hit $8 per gallon. That is over double than what we were seeing before. This is terrible. You got dairy products, 2.9%, used cars and trucks. Don't even get me going with that. Granted, there are higher models, but some of those higher models of used cars are more expensive than a brand new car that is a lower model. It is mind-blowing, the supply and demand craze that is going on. And heck, if you're learning about economics right now, it's a great opportunity to jump into that, because when you're living in it, it makes it easier to sometimes understand it. Cereal and bakery products are up, electricity, meat, poultry, fish, and eggs. All items, 1.0%, new vehicles, 1%, tobacco and smoking products, and it goes all the way down. But the fuel prices is what's pissing a lot of people off. How much they're paying for food is pissing a lot of people off. And the numbers don't lie here. And the Biden administration is in a huge problem, because rather than taking personal responsibility for what they're doing, right, whether that's pumping more money out in the economy, granted the Federal Reserve's trying to offset that, they're going to blame somebody else. Sometimes they're going to be blaming Trump. Sometimes they're going to be blaming Vladimir Putin. They're going to be blaming Saudi Arabia. They're going to be blaming Iran. They're going to be blaming everybody else but themselves, which if they would just take some personal responsibility and not appease these lefties, these progressive lefties, these climate fanatics, you know, we can get fuel prices down. The problem is they don't want to do it. When you live in the state of California and your tax on each gallon of gas is over 50 cents, there's a problem within that. It says a new acceleration of inflation in May deepened the political challenges for Biden and his economic team, who have sought in recent weeks to reassure wary Americans that the specter of inflation is beginning to fade and the country is shifting toward more stable growth. Folks, let's go back here. Does that look like it's flat? Does that look like it's coming down? Does that look like things are stabilizing? I mean, it's amazing how you look at these graphs. The president and his team go on national television. They tell you one thing, and while you're watching it on one screen, you can literally have another screen that's opened up from the Bureau of Labor Statistics that's telling you a completely other thing. As if like we're dumb that we couldn't do that. As if we can't read graphs. As if we can't read data. And they're going to BS us straight to our face. And they complained about Trump for 4 years. Ah, he's a liar, right? He's a bigot, sexist, homophobe. Look what he's doing. And then they give Joe Biden a free pass on all this stuff. Where are all the Pinocchios? Okay, where is the New York Times on this? Where is MSNBC, CNN, and all these people? Yes, you have the New York Times right here doing an article on inflation numbers, but look at what they said. A new acceleration of inflation in May deepened the political challenges for Biden, right? But nowhere in here, as far as I'm aware, does it go into all the lies that he stated, the manipulation that Jen Psaki did, and what Karine Jean-Pierre is currently doing, as well as Joe Biden going on Jimmy Kimmel as well. None of that's really stated, but we're just going to kind of play it down a little bit, rub them shoulders in the feet of Joe Biden to make it seem like, hey, you know what, everything's going to be okay. The president has identified inflation as his top economic priority, one of which he can't fix still, year and a half into it, saying that he understands the pain consumers are feeling from soaring costs of gasoline, housing, food, and other necessities. Yet his top advisors have expressed confidence that price growth is beginning to cool across much of the economy as the Federal Reserve moves to raise interest rates and government efforts to repair pandemic-snarled supply chains shows more signs of success. A lot of these supply chains said it's going to take another 1 to 2 years to figure itself out. By the time that happens, Joe Biden's going to be out of office. At least we hope that he's going to be out of office, because Lord only knows how long this is going to continue. And I love that he says that this is his top priority, his economic priority. Has done nothing. Literally, he's done nothing. The Federal Reserve has done something, but this guy's done nothing at all, and as if anything, made the problem worse. And we did a whole episode on this when we showed Ted Cruz's graph. We showed graphs from Fox News and other outlets. So this whole thing that it's his top priority is just completely mind-boggling. And I love how, he comes out and says, oh, I'm doing everything I possibly can. No, you're not, man. You're not doing anything. You're not doing anything. Friday's release of Consumer Price Index from the Labor Department contradicted, at least for a month, some of the administration's more optimistic predictions. It showed prices of goods like cars, eggs, clothing growing faster in May than they did in April. A senior White House official told reporters in a background call on Thursday that the administration expected goods inflation to moderate in the months to come, specifically citing the car market, which has been pinched by semiconductor shortage and resurgence of demand for vehicles. So you look at semiconductors mostly coming from Taiwan, obviously because of COVID-19 that hindered a lot of manufacturing production. So we expect to have certain inflation components coming from, yes, the COVID-19, the shutdown, but not everything. Okay, not everything. And he's going to blame Vladimir Putin, which is what you see right here. After Friday report, Mr. Biden issued a statement blaming Russian President Vladimir Putin for rising prices and vowed to continue to do everything we can to lower prices for the American people. While at the same time, like I said, actively right now, shutting down certain pipelines, actually shutting down certain supply chains in terms of oil. Complete BS on president's part. He's only making it worse. And like I said, he wants to make it seem like this, that he's doing everything he can. But while his energy secretary, the Secretary of Energy, comes out and tells people, hey, buy an electric vehicle. Are you an idiot? People can't just go out and afford a new vehicle when inflation's already high. They just got out of COVID-19, barely able to pay their bills, and sometimes not able to pay their bills, which is why the government had to interfere and give them $600 plus a month checks. So you're just going to go tell them, after a whole shitstorm we just went through for the last 2 years, where people lost their jobs, people couldn't go to work, all these things, and now inflation's up 8.9%, that you're going to go tell them to buy an electric vehicle? What a knucklehead. It shows you how far away they are, how disconnected they are from the American public. Well, you got airfares and other travel costs have jumped, goes into that. Obviously, the oil supply chain remains tight. Energy, again, leads higher inflation. I would also like to point out, you think these numbers are bad now as far as fuel costs go and energy? Folks, China is still kind of within the midst of the pandemic. China has not fully, even remotely fully recovered. So when they start getting their economy up and going, you think prices are bad now? Wait till they just start sucking all the gas and oil out of everything. Prices are going to go through the freaking roof. But, hey, Joe Biden, thank God he's there, folks. Do everything he can. I think somebody did a story. It was actually really funny. The story I think they did on it was that his ice cream price, that, remember when he's getting the chocolate chip ice cream, or the hell he said, went up like almost 10%. So, he probably understands in the regards of food prices going up, because now he can't go afford his chocolate chip ice cream. Food prices rose 1.2% in the month of May alone. Okay. Things are really, really bad in terms of dairy, eggs, and meat. The increase was driven by a 5% increase in the price of eggs from the previous month. So, folks, this stuff is wild. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck before all this happened, God only knows where you're at now. And I can't help but feel for you. Rents climbed, a pain for tenants and policymakers alike. I know there's rental areas. Granted, this is California. In the span of 9 months, so this was in 2021. In the span of 9 months, rent had increased over $1,200 in my area. In 9 to 10 months, $1,200. Wild. Hey, but it's all thanks to Joe Biden. No big deal why he's sitting comfortably in the White House, getting his feet massaged by the media. Markets recoil as investors react to higher than expected inflation. So not going in the direction people want, or at least all of us want. But their expectations say things are getting better. Look at this. The S&P 500 fell 2.9% Friday. I hope your retirement 401k is feeling pretty good right now, folks. Mine's taking a hit, that's for damn sure. The 2-year Treasury note rose above 3%. Well, what's driving inflation? They say you have strong demand, too few goods, service sector pressures, all true. There's definitely connections to be made there, all true. But again, that's part of what's taking place. The other part is Biden's policies. The other part is, yes, Russia, Ukraine. So there's all this shitstorm going on. But like I said, if you're going to make the claim that you're doing everything you possibly can to fix inflation, to fix fuel and gas prices, which is what's hurting a lot of Americans on top of the food idea, then you need to actively be doing really everything you can. But right now, he isn't. And so that's why I wanted to give you guys a little brief update on what is going on with inflation. The numbers don't lie, folks. The numbers still aren't looking good. And I'd be kind of surprised if it really went down in the next 6 months to 8 months. Just based on, yes, these numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, but kind of what we're seeing on a global scale as well. And like I said, if there's already demand and there's a shortage of supply for certain consumer goods, and China itself hasn't actually ramped up its own economy, there is a sense of, yes, there could be relief because their manufacturing sector is going to help us as well. But at the same time, in terms of food and energy and certain costs, they're going to be competing in that same market as well. So it's not going to offset in the way that we think in a more positive measure. Rather, I think it's going to have more of a negative measure. And other economists, other conservative Republican commentators like Ben Shapiro, those on the Blaze, you have PragerU as well. Others think that we are actually headed in a recession. I hope that's not the case. I hope things are able to even itself out so that we don't dip into a recession. But, you know, I'm going to try and stay hopeful that we don't. With that being said, as always, folks, I hope you have a lovely weekend. Be on the lookout for tomorrow. We're going to have Supernatural Saturday, folks, and I think we got kind of a doozy that's going to be played. So be on the lookout for that. It will upload at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with that being said, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Share this link with your friends and family all over social media. And folks, I will see you tomorrow here on The Bob Brat Show.